API gems we use on PH, payroll here. Versionist and RABL. I already gave the intro to the guys, so everybody just catch up. What's Versionist? It's a plugin for versioning Rails-based RESTful APIs. Anybody who's used an API before? I'm gonna assume everybody said yes. So, why version your APIs? Well, you can change your security strategy, you can change the signature of your API, like how you serve stuff, formatting or whatever, keep up with standards, and you keep your users happy. You give them time to keep up. Usually, the strategy, Google goes for like 3 years. They support the previous version of their API for 3 years. Depending on the size of your application or your project, that may be shorter. But basically, you don't want to just flip a switch once you do updates on your APIs and suddenly nobody can use it anymore. You want to give your users, your developers time to keep up, keep them happy. Versionist supports 3 strategies. Strategies are basically the way an API user tells you what version they want to use. First is HTTP headers. This is actually most secure, what they recommend. But in my opinion, it's not as straightforward. It's not as it's not as declarative. But basically, you hook your what version you're using on the headers, and that's enough about that. I don't really have an example for this, but I have examples for these. Path, basically here. Your version number is included in the URL of your resource. As an example, I'm just gonna comment this out. I'm gonna go with path. This app is basically just a bare bones scaffold with 2 resources, and I just added Versionist and RABL. So this is the way most of the declarations in Versionist actually go inside your routes. You define a module, a namespace. So if you look inside the controller, so basically that's your namespace. Yep, and you define that, and you basically just say what path to use. So if I go inside here, now that works. This is the default URL. But once I go v1 and I disable the default resource, works. So this is an old version of the index. So you can actually use Versionist not just for APIs, so it's not specific to that. If you want to if you want to store your entire resource set under versions, feel free to do so. It's not stopping you from doing anything, but if you go API style, basically. This already has RABL, so I'm just going to turn that on. Of course, you need to use another version.
Oh my god.
Okay. Request parameter. In this, you use request. I think this is the ugliest, but Versionist supports it. You just hook the version you want to use under a URL parameter. And you basically just change path to parameter and value. The same. I comment this again. It's basically very easy to switch between them. Only problem is you can actually do both. Although why would you? And then I just say version equals. Yeah, but it goes to v1 index, so we got the right route. And that's basically Versionist. It also comes with a bunch of generators for you. It generates namespace controllers, routes, presenters. Anybody familiar with the presenter strategy? Sometimes the data you want to represent on your API endpoints don't map directly to your active record columns. Actually, most often that's going to be the case. So instead of declaring everything on your active record model, you create presenter classes that basically accept your active record or other ORM object, and yeah, you can do it. And then documentation, which does anybody document your stuff? No? Wait, let me go back.
Yeah.
What happened? Sorry guys. So installation and configuration, gem versionist in your gem file. Automatic ba?
Yeah, automatically after 5 seconds.
And then yeah, I showed you the declarations in the... Fuck!
Meron, may nakaset dun sa, the next, dun sa previous. Dun sa,
Control E on the left side.
check mo yung sa 6, slide 6.
Or what?
Yan o, meron. And everything.
We look bad. Yep, so it goes... Basically just use modules. You can use anything like V1 is pretty clear, straightforward. And then you just define a path, in which case it gets hooked before the resource name, and then header. So in this case, it will look for a version key and then the value uno, and it knows that it's going to look under the V1 module. It happens automatically, so even your presenters get hooked. If you notice, they don't do versioning under models. You shouldn't. Your ORM should, your column declaration should never change depending on version. And there, if you want to see a more like instructions in the wild, you should see them here. So path or parameter is replace headers. Feel free to ignore this. This is basically just to hook the root URL. So the main difference is just the keys after module. That's basically the only difference. Alright, so you generate a new API version using Rails G Versionist new API version. Sorry for the thing. You guys need a demo. Basically, it's just going to create a bunch of directories for you. And then it's going to be up to you to go into the routes and declare the API version block yourself. But directories and I think basic documentation is included. And by basic means just a blank file. And then you can also specifically generate a version component if you just want controllers, if you just want presenters, you can do that. So presenter name, if for example I wanted the book presenter, it's going to be Rails G Versionist new presenter book, like generating a scaffold, and the module namespace, V1, V2, or whatever, una dos tres. And I think the most useful part of Versionist is when you want to copy. Basically, once you switch from V1 to V2, using Versionist copy API version will copy all the contents of those directories and hook them under a different namespace. And then you can start flipping between V1 and V2 very easily. Come on, take a seat. We just started an hour ago.
Simula lang.
Oo, wala. So may kakain ng pizza. Dito to. Sige. So I'm gonna demo this. Rails generate versionist copy API version. So yeah, let's go do that. Here, if you can see, I already have V1. And let's say we want to generate V2. Rails G Versionist column copy API.
G Versionist. G space.
So the first parameter is the directory and the second is the module namespace. Alright. So sorry, no tests. But if you look inside, you now have V2 and it looks the same. Now you can start editing V2, your V2 resources to apply whatever changes you need. And with full confidence that unless you like really mess something up here, any users of V1 will still be able to do so. So assuming you can just go V2, and let's go with path. Let's go with path. So I'm gonna set now, we need this, we're going with path. It will look for it in the correct directory. So now it's looking for it in V2. So that's it. That's basically Versionist. It's most useful when you switch from one version to the other.
Question.
Sure.
Anong pinagsabihin mo yung version ka?
Sorry?
Pag pinagsabihin mo yung version na parameter, tsaka
Yung version sa path.
Although wala namang gagawa na, pero ano lang.
Accessible pa rin. Accessible pa rin.
Pero susundin niya. Nakita ko na kasi ganun yung URL.
Kung by URL yung version.
Ginamit mo sabay.
Source code dive.
Sige, source code dive tayo.
Parameter version, path version.
May oras naman tayo, di ba?
Wala. Malay mo, meron siyang error handler or
Adventure time. Ano tayo? Uli. Springed.
Ha?
Springed.
On the spot.
Exchange. On the spot. Game.
Anyway, yun yung homework ni Mark. Sige, nagtanong. Sige, yung talk mo next time. Anyway. So that's... Sorry? What?
Rake routes. Or lang makita na yung ginagawa.
V1 and V2, ano?
Pag may V1, V2. Routes.
Magkaka na yung
Routes.
Yes. Ay po, guys.
V1, V2.
So let's change it.
Wala naman, hindi naman alam sa routes kapag...
Hindi, path yun eh. Hindi, nakapath tayo ngayon, Barry.
Hindi yung tanong.
Kaya napapalitan. Wait, ha? Hindi ka chill, Phil.
Oh, yeah.
Kaya naka-on yung parameter, tapos yung path on yung version.
Ano natin lahat? So headers din eh. Ano ko yung URL?
Baka magka-conflict.
Access na lang. Black hole.
Ano ako mag-type?
Paunahan.
So V2, V1, still there.
Yun yung V1, V2. Baka meron pa rin version.
So let's try something weird. If my laptop explodes,
kailangan root eh para gumana yung version.
Yeah.
Hindi yata may kita kong version.
So
Kailangan root. So there's really not
Yun naman pali. So may hierarchy. Science, guys. Okay, so this is the longer presentation. RABL, Ruby API builder language, templating system for generating. So you know, if you have a lot of endpoints and you're seeing a lot of duplicated code. Let me just do the disclaimer. Anything RABL can do, you can probably do presenter-wise as well. It just gets you just save a little more lines once you do a lot of repetition in terms of shared columns and shared resources. More on that in a bit. No. There. Alright, features. It creates arbitrary nodes named based on combining data in an object. So basically you're doing presenters but in a template. Although the way we use it, we use both presenters and RABL. We like using presenters so you can unit test them. RABL supports it as well, but you know we're just more comfortable doing unit testing on actual Ruby classes. But when we start using once we start seeing the repetition of columns, that's where RABL's partials and inheritance system starts becoming useful. So yeah, you can render partials, you can do alias attributes, you can append attributes from a child back up to a parent node. It's called gluing. And then you can also do conditional nodes. I guess code speaks louder. So an example, RABL templates are rendered instead of using render JSON. Typically, if you wanted to, so let's skip the version controllers for now. If you wanted to do an endpoint, an API endpoint for show, this is Rails 3. So you do a respond to block, right? Then you do something for JSON and then you do something for HTML. Something like that. JSON. Just basically go render JSON book. And then it calls to JSON on the book, and that's what you get. In RABL, it's a template, much like SF, you know. So if you look inside its directory, I have both show HTML ERB and show JSON RABL. So I'm just gonna assume I have one. I think I have one. Oh, because I disabled the URL. And then when I go JSON, even without the respond to form, it just goes. You render the format declared in the RABL template. I'll explain the syntax. You can do collection. You can do object. So collection for an index action or something that you want to return multiple records on, or object for just single record, and then you basically define the attributes you want to render, and then the output is described under. Configuration, a bunch of gotchas. RABL always includes child root, meaning if I have users and users have many addresses, each address is going to be hooked under the address node, not node, address header. Sometimes you don't want that. I personally like it, even though it's kind of redundant, because if somebody's using your API who's not familiar with your source code, he knows exactly what objects he's gonna get. But you can turn it off. You just go into the RABL config file. So it's a bit painful to do something as simple as that. You think that would be something you can declare at the moment of render. Or leading pizza, what the fuck? Anyway, so you just do it here. Just do an initializer, you can do it in
Come on!
But it's processed on runtime. And then you can cache your sources, self-explanatory. And you can, for the JSON guys, you can enable callbacks, support for JSON style. If the incoming request is a callback parameter, it can do that. So it has a bit of magic embedded. Alright, so for object assignments, as you see a while ago, object.book. This will actually not render any attributes. You have to actually use. So if I said attributes item, this page there. Those are the basics. You can do an alias if you wanted to say like book libro or something, or let's say another word for book.
Aklat.
You can do that too. You want to collection assignments, basically the same. So if I go to books index, yeah, so you can go. It's basically the same thing. Mga class. By default, the root node becomes the child node. So. And then you can also customize child and root node labels. So if I wanted to go root library and object root libro, I can do that. So we can go object root applet. So mga applet and applet. And it's not working because we have to go there. The complaints we have internally in the team is like RABL syntax has some ambiguity, but you keep it simple, you don't do anything fancy. It will serve your purpose, basically inheritance and partials. So you can also disable them. Yeah, they're just gonna go away. We're not gonna demo that. And you can do a custom built response nodes. There. So if I wanted to go node count, I just declare that here, aside indexation RABL, can go node bilang. I can and there you go. So each child has it. But you really should be using presenters as a node. Anything complicated. Yeah, so but that's preference. You can actually just go for RABL, skip the presenter thing altogether. You will be testing it in the RABL way though, which I'm not really fond of. So RABL attributes. This doesn't have to be an active record object, by the way. So presenters can work. This could be object book presenter, and ID, author, and title could just be attributes to be clear. You can alias them. Here, I'm aliasing title as pamagat, so there you go. If I remove it, it just goes back to title. Another gotcha. Name the alias attributes currently don't work together, so you have to separate them out. That's basically it. Pardon the typo. Then conditional attributes, again, yeah. So if you want specific columns to not appear, unless a certain column is, unless a certain condition doesn't go through with that. Again, no presenters, though you know, still use it. And then child nodes. You can basically anything that anything in your core object that outputs another object, you can put inside the child. So I go child books. The most basic example is, let's say I'm using under author, and author has many books. So you can render them all. Let's go to authors. So that's author, and then if I wanted to render a child node under author, I would basically just go child books. Tum na? Sorry?
Show the trouble, and siya partial siya. Shared partial
yeah,
yata
it's
siya.
sure. It's sure.
Then sa isa dapat.
Oh, I'm missing a declaration. There. That takes care of children. You can pass in an object as well. So by default, it assumes author is an author, but you can do object writer if you're using a different instance variable. And then you can also alias children, books, portfolio. Same thing. Basically, if you want to instance something, just do the Ruby arrow and a symbol or a string. And then gluing. Sometimes you may need attributes on the very top level of your endpoint. In this case, if I, for example, I wanted ID on the same level as the object root, I just go glue ID. Not pretty sure about this. I don't know why I use this. I think there's something more. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, I have to pass it in the object. Glue. Attribute ID. And there. So on the same level as the top. No, that did not work. Anyway, just trust me on that. I'm on attributes. See? There you go. So now it's on the same level as. Still didn't work, so I'm blaming you. Custom nodes. You basically just declare a key, and then you can hook in an object on the block, which in this case I'm implementing initials there in order to show the initials of the author. I'm really not comfortable with this, but it allows you to do it. Usually I just go if it's simple like account or something like that. I do a node. But the moment our practice is the moment we start seeing nodes, we declare them back to the presenter and just call them as an attribute. And then you can also do conditionals. Just pass in an if, very similar to active model, active error, wherever you're familiar with. So do an if block. I don't think they have an unless. So just do a not if you want to do an unless. And then RABL partials. So you can RABL allows you to do partials similar to other templates like Hammond or template aliens. An example of a partial we're using is show.json here. Ignore the extents for now. So in the JSON RABL thing, in the books here. Yeah, so I declare a node author, and instead of having to write the entire attribute set again, I just do partial or author show, and then I pass in an object which will get evaluated by the partial itself. So in this case, I don't declare any object anymore. When you do a partial, you pass it directly where the partial call is made. That's the basics. And then this is where I think RABL is most useful. A very common issue we noticed while writing our API is some endpoints need a full set of data, some others different set of data from a core object, but they share a shared common set, and that's where extends comes in. In the show partial here, for example, we say that the partial underscore show is actually extends the basic show template. So this all the attributes here get used by show, but any other custom node I'm using, so under authors you're not seeing the high frog thing, but when I go books, the custom is there, and it was rendered by a partial that extended the original show template. So imagine how you can use that. Once you, for example, you have a user core object, and you're probably going to render user all over the place. If your API is robust enough, you only have to write the core attributes once and then extend them as needed. You can also do conditionals. So just mix and match whatever is useful. Yeah. So and then you can also do children. So you have a child node that extends a partial, and then you can start declaring custom nodes under extend. So your child, for this particular example, you can add in additional columns as needed, additional nodes. while still maintaining the originally declared underscore show partial. That's it, basically.
Yeah.
Questions?
Sino gumawa ng rap?
Escuela. I don't know his name. But the good thing about RABL, so that same declaration works for XML, so you don't change anything. And also Bison here, so message pack is so yeah. And then you can also go and use your own JSON parser. You can declare that under config. So if you write your own, it just has to respond to a particular method. It's described in the GitHub page. It just has, you can write your own JSON parser if you wanted, while like that, if you had that much free time on your hands. But he's suggesting OJ. OJ was what he was suggesting. Another more useful feature of RABL is it can do layouts. So imagine that your API, for example, serves like a timestamp or a user key, whatever, throughout your entire API system. You just do a layout, declare it there, and it gets automatically included in all your endpoints. So yeah, but more on that on the GitHub page. Anything else before we eat? So I guess everyone should know.
No.
Thanks, guys.
Woo! Merry Christmas.